You know that incredible feeling when you finally land a new job? It's amazing. But then, the paperwork hits your inbox. Specifically, that employment contract. It can seriously feel like you need a law degree just to figure out what it's saying. So today, we're going to break it all down and decode the key clauses you absolutely have to know. All right, so you've crushed the interviews, you've negotiated your heart out, and that offer is officially yours. A huge congratulations. This is the start of a brand new chapter. But before you pop the champagne, there's that one final hurdle to clear, the contract. And it almost always starts with something like this, right? A nice, friendly, pretty straightforward offer letter. It's usually just a page, maybe two, welcoming you to the team, laying out the basics, and man, it feels good to sign this. But then, right after that simple digital handshake, you get handed this beast. Suddenly it's a dense, multi-page document that's just swimming in legal jargon, clauses, subclauses. This is the real deal, the actual employment agreement. And it's what truly governs your entire relationship with the company.
Okay, let's not be intimidated. We're going to dive right into this thing. We are going to demystify this document piece by piece, so you can sign it with total confidence, knowing exactly what you're agreeing to.
First up, let's talk about the digital handshake. This is that crucial moment where the friendly welcome aboard email officially transforms into a legally binding contract. It's the foundation for everything else. Just look at the shift in language here. On the left, you've got that warm, welcoming vibe of the offer letter. On the right, it's all business, super formal, super legalistic. It goes from, "We are so pleased to offer you," to naming the parties involved. And that's not just a style change, that's a massive legal shift, and it's a really important one to notice. So these first few pages are really just setting the stage. The contract makes it crystal clear who the parties are. That's you and the company. It locks in your official start date, and it even defines a bunch of key terms. This section is what turns that casual job offer into a formal, enforceable legal document. All right, the legal groundwork is laid. Now let's get to the good stuff, the core of the whole deal, what you'll be doing for them, and, of course, what you'll be getting in return. Every single contract is going to have a section that outlines your duties. Now, this is more than just a job description. This is basically a list of promises you're making, legally binding promises, to be professional, to follow the rules, and to really dedicate your working hours to the job. And then you'll see language like this. This clause, which is super common, isn't just about showing up and working hard. It legally binds you to work exclusively for this company. That means no side hustles, no freelancing on the side, without getting their permission in writing first. That's a huge detail to be aware of. Okay, let's talk about the money. This is probably the first page you flip to, right? In India, your contract will always mention CTC, or cost to company. As you can see from this table, it's broken down into different parts. Your actual in-hand salary comes from things like the basic and allowances after deductions. But the CTC also includes costs the company pays for you, like their contribution to your provident fund. So here's the bottom line. Your CTC is not the number that's going to hit your bank account every month, not even close. All right, let's venture into what is probably the most intimidating part of any contract, the fine print. These are all the clauses the company puts in to protect its own interests, and you really need to understand what they mean.
So you might run into something called a surety bond or an employment bond. This is pretty common in jobs where the company is going to spend a lot of money training you. It's basically a financial penalty you agree to pay if you decide to leave before a certain amount of time. But here's a little inside baseball. While they are technically legal, Indian courts will often only enforce them if the company can prove they actually lost that much money on your training. It can't just be a number meant to scare you into staying.
And we are not talking about pocket change here. This number is the actual bond amount from a real management trainee agreement. When you see a number like this, it suddenly gets very real. This is a commitment with a pretty significant financial consequence attached, so you have to be sure you understand it before you sign.
So how does this work in the real world? Well, it's a simple three-step process. First, you get the training. Second, you commit to stay for a set period. In this example, it's 3 years after the training ends. And third, if you break that promise, you trigger the penalty. It's a very straightforward but also very strict commitment. Now, bonds aren't the only thing hiding in the fine print. You've also got to watch for things like a non-compete clause, which stops you from working for a direct competitor. A non-solicit clause prevents you from taking clients or coworkers with you if you leave. And of course, there's confidentiality, which is your legal promise to keep company secrets, well, secret. These are all pretty standard, but they have real legal teeth. You know, no job is forever. So let's talk about the final section of the contract, the one that lays out all the official rules for what happens when it's time to say goodbye.
A really key distinction in Indian law is this idea of workmen versus non-workmen. Think of workmen as people in more hands-on, operational roles. For them, the law often sets a minimum notice period. But for most professional, office, or managerial roles, you're likely a non-workman. And that means your notice period is whatever it says in that contract you signed. It could be 2 months, maybe even 3.
You might see this acronym pop up, PILON, or pylon. What on earth is that? It stands for Payment in Lieu of Notice. It's basically a buyout clause. It gives either you or the company the option to just pay the salary for the notice period instead of you actually working through it. It's a way to get a quick, clean exit if needed.
Okay, here's the situation. You have a bad day. You storm into your boss's office, you quit in the heat of the moment, and then, the next morning, you wake up in a cold sweat. You've made a terrible mistake. Can you take it back?
While the classic lawyer answer is, it depends. Generally, yes, you can withdraw your resignation as long as your employer hasn't officially accepted it yet. But there are exceptions. If your contract or company policy explicitly says you can't, or if they've already taken action on it, like say they've already hired your replacement, then you're probably out of luck.
So, after all of that, what's the bottom line?
Your employment contract is not just another piece of paper you sign and forget. It is the rulebook, the guide for your entire professional life at that company. And really reading it, really getting it, that's not just being careful, that's taking control of your career.
So I'll leave you with this question. After everything we've talked about, from exclusivity and salary breakdowns to those tricky bonds and notice periods, what's the one clause in your contract that you're going to go back and reread tonight? Because knowing your rights and your obligations, that is step 1 to mastering your own career path.